I'm Cassandra Seier, head of international capital markets at the New York Stock Exchange.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on and doing this interview. I think for first time meeting finally after
Yes,
all those conversations.
of course.
Yeah, and great to be doing a project with NYSE on Southeast Asia companies going global.
Yes.
Hopefully we get to tell more stories of other entrepreneurs across the globe who are scaling their companies and all that. But we're here for Nova, SG60 Edition, and Singapore celebrating 60 years, and we're seeing more companies from the region go global as well and raise from the public markets also. Like, how do you see this evolution of the role of Singapore and Southeast Asia when it comes to the capital markets?
Yeah, I mean, it's really exciting to see Southeast Asian companies coming, to the main stage. And as you noticed, Paulo, I was born and raised in Singapore. And so Singapore particularly feels very personal to me. And to see Singapore as a nation being 60th this year and also being a part of that, amplification of SG60 for NYSE was truly, truly exciting. And in my position where my team and I help take companies public from all around the world, our focus on Southeast Asia is to really help companies be ready and help them scale up, help them tell their equity story to global investors. And that journey has been so satisfying. Our team are, on the ground, based in Singapore as well. And it's a team of 60 people with our parent company, Intercontinental Exchange. And NYSE also has local presence. What we have noticed, working closely with companies in Southeast Asia, is that these companies are truly interesting. Very differentiating business model and really great discipline around growth and making sure the companies are performing at their best. Right. So what we do is we help tell that story by lending our global state. So truly satisfying to be a part of the Southeast Asia growth and help them one day come to tap the US market, right. The deepest liquidity in the world. So very, very exciting to have that, vantage point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you talked about how you're able to help a lot of these companies, tell their equity story better, potentially tell that story in the US. Conversely, how do you see the value of international companies coming to the US, especially the public markets and Wall Street? Like, what value does having, I guess, a more diverse kind of set of
absolutely. That is so important. So on our platform, we have over 2,400 issuers from all around the world. Of the 2,400, more than 500 from outside the United States. And more than 500 of these companies come with a different diversification play. And it is truly important for U.S. investors to have that breadth and depth of investment opportunity. So we think it is truly important to continue to keep that platform global to make sure that investors have an option and democratize public access for all types of companies from all around the world, from all sectors.
Yeah, it makes that liquidity even more productive.
Totally.
I would say. And that points to a larger trend that we're seeing of capital markets, even from early stage venture capital, becoming a lot more, I'd say, democratized or globalized. And then now moving on to, capital markets as well, a lot more venture-backed companies outside of the U.S. listing in the U.S., for example. I think 2017 C Group was a great example of that, listing NYSE.
Yes, it's a great company.
Yeah. and so how do you see that trend evolving and what role do you see NYSE play as this trend progresses? I'm sure we'll have more of such companies in the future.
Absolutely. I think this is a really great way to kind of just look at how companies are starting to scale up, and as they start to become much more cross-border, as they expand globally, we are working with them to make sure that by the time they do come to public market, they are ready. Mm-hmm. So it's not a last minute, planning. Yeah. We've been engaging with companies for years before their IPO moment. And for example, this year we welcome Klarna, which is a Stockholm-based, originally a fintech company. And it is 20 years old by the time it came to IPO. And we had engaged with them for many years as well before the IPO. So I would see the same, kind of playbook with our Southeast Asia portfolio companies, where we want to, work with them, help them really harvest their full potential when they're ready to IPO. And that includes early engagement with investors. That includes helping them make sure that when they go out for their non-deal roadshow, they are hitting all the points.
Right.
And so I think this journey is super important for us to continue to help them. It's not a short-term strategy. This is a long-term
overnight thing.
strategic move. Yes, which is why we have people on the ground. I'm based in New York, as you know that. But it is important, I think. In order to run a global business, you need to have boots on the ground. And companies need to know who to go to. So it's very important for us to have local presence in all around the world.
You mentioned earlier about taking this playbook and, I guess sharing it with companies outside of the US, like with Klarna, for example, them being able to leverage that playbook. Conversely, is there anything that maybe Southeast Asia companies are adding into the playbook that you learned from this region?
It's so interesting because people think about Southeast Asia as one. I think of Southeast Asia as many
right.
different countries, different language, different cultural differences. Having that appreciation is super important.
Right.
Same thing with the investors. When they look at Southeast Asia, they should not bucket it as one, right? Vietnam is very different from a Singapore and very different from a Philippines. And so just understanding how Asia as a whole
Right.
really, add to the value of their portfolio is important for the investor. And I love the fact that investors can actually buy an equity stock and yet have exposure to the underlying companies and countries that they operate in.
Right.
So instead of buying a bond that is issued by, a company that is in a country that is difficult to access, you can just buy a US equity that has that exposure.
Right.
And that's a very interesting concept. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, it's a lot more direct access. And,
Totally.
Especially for investors that are perhaps exploring new markets.
Yeah,
It's a good entry
and for
point.
the issuer, for the company, right? They now have a US dollars acquisition currency.
Right.
So when you are listed in the US, your stock is traded in US dollars. So even if you are operating in a country that is not US dollars based, you now have a US dollars currency to be able to potentially grow through M&A activities.
Right. Yeah.
And that's something you don't get if you're only locally listed.
Yeah, it's smoothing things a lot in the acquisition process.
It opens up the aperture of opportunities.
Right. And shifting gears a little bit, talking about how the public markets are often a bellwether signpost of innovation and new technologies. Where do you see this signpost pointing towards based on what you've seen posting in NYSE recently?
Yeah, I see the signposts continue to be, helpful. It is where, if you're traded publicly, it allows for the most public transparency and the golden, the highest standard of companies that are listed anywhere. The US continues to be that gold standard for a lot of companies. So it is generally also where innovation is at its optimal.
Right.
When you have, investors that you have to be accountable for.
Right.
You tend to push the envelope and make sure that you are always leveraging the latest technology to continue to scale the company up.
Yeah, and finally, any message for CEOs out there who are, I guess, thinking about public markets or what advice would you have for them?
I would say you really need to start your process early. And we start to engage with companies 2 to 3 years before IPO at a minimum.
Right.
So don't leave the exchange selection till the end because you might be leaving value on the table. And that means, engaging us early, leveraging some of our amazing tools and services that are available to pre-list a company. And these services really help tell that story, as we talked about, as well as give you access. So one thing, Paulo, as you know, we're doing an event at New York Stock Exchange on October 23rd. It is called NYSE International Day.
The second one.
The second annual. Thank you for doing your research. But what is so important to me personally and my team is we want to bring companies from outside the United States to come into the building and see for themselves firsthand the opportunities that are available when like-minded CEOs and investors come together. And that is an amazing convening of, sophisticated investors alongside great, smart companies, C-suite. So that is a wonderful opportunity for companies to come and see what NYSE can do for them years before their
It's
IPO.
really part of that engagement, the long-term engagement.
It's part of that community that we truly appreciate, the community of companies that are listed and the community of companies that are going to be listed. When you put them together, they will find a way to organically grow their relationship, their businesses. Things don't happen overnight, right? Strategic corporations, strategic alliances are struck after years of developing a relationship.
Right. No, and super excited to have some of Insignia's companies
Yes.
fly over to International Day.
Yes.
I think one of them is also doing a booth there to showcase some of their products, and excited to see the interviews with these founders on the trading floor. Some of them, I think, for the first time. So I'm sure the founders are excited as well.
I mean, you're like an adult in a candy store when you walk on the trading floor, right? With CNBC in the middle, the podium. A lot of people have that on the bucket list to ring that bell and just be a part of that, presence. You're walking into history. The New York Stock Exchange is 233 years young. We continue to always push the envelope on innovation. We're always innovating, and our stocks trade differently. When you come to the New York Stock Exchange, you come down to the trading floor, you're still seeing traders alongside technology, right? We have the best trading system called Pillar. And on top of that, you have extra liquidity from some of these market-making companies. We have 3 major designated market-making companies, and you will see them when you come to the trading floor. They have big presence on the trading floor.
Right.
And when market is volatile, and it happens very frequently, and volatility can just be a large block trade, it could be month-end rebalancing, it could be quarter-end rebalancing. Any of these activities are volatility events, and you will find that all our stocks trade better, tighter spreads, less volatility, consistently.
Right. And technology has played a role in helping that.
Absolutely. Technology and human.
Right.
The hybrid combined model, which is the most unique. No other exchanges trade the way we do.
Right.
So when you come, I would love to show you that.
Yeah, we'd love to come over and visit and
that
see it for myself.
quality of trading helps a lot of companies. Especially when there's volatility event, these type of companies will benefit tremendously from the accountability of the designated market makers, the liquidity they add, as well as the servicing element.
Right. Yeah, and especially these days, I guess there's a lot of uncertainty and volatility, and so it's really
and
put
when
to
you
that
are a
test,
publicly traded company, your stock price is the most transparent way for any investor to look at you.
Yeah.
How your stocks trade, whether it is smooth, it's super important.
Right.
So that is a really great value add that a lot of companies get from the New York Stock Exchange.
Right. I mean, on that note, thanks so much, Cassandra. We'll have a quick segment here where you'll pick 2 questions.
2 questions.
Yeah. I'll do one first. Yeah.
Okay. Would you?
All right. Oh, how do you de-stress?
Ooh, how do I de-stress? I de-stress by exercising.
Any particular exercise?
Yeah, I like to do boot camps, and I love combination of high intensity training as well as some cardio.
Right.
So most of my workouts are pretty short, 30 minutes, and I try to do a lot of multiple body parts at one go, just to make it very efficient.
Yeah.
And you would think that should be stressful rather than de-stress, but it's a mental break.
Right.
When you don't have to think about anything and you're just literally going into the motion. Yeah, I love that.
Awesome. Second question.
Great. I feel like it's a lottery bowl.
Unfortunately, no prizes. Leader more people should learn from.
So this is a difficult question because I think it's pretty subjective. You gravitate toward leaders that resonate with you. Personally, personally, I would say something that might be controversial. I'm drawn to Elon Musk and some of the things and businesses that he has been able to create. What I love about his leadership is he tends to be very focused on what he's trying to accomplish, and he devotes time toward areas where he alone can do and make a difference.
Right.
So if it is a simple, easy to solve problem, it's not worth his time, and somebody else can do it.
Yeah.
That is pretty interesting because you know where your strengths are and you know that you are adding value for generations to come. So I find that to be really inspirational. I hope one day I will achieve that greatness.
I call that like the art of letting go, because sometimes founders like would face a lot of there's that temptation to solve everything yourself, but
And the
sometimes you
vision,
gotta, yeah, and the
having
vision,
a
yes.
vision, that is quite incredible for a leader, especially in companies that we come across. Many of them are global companies that have very complex issues to solve. And having a vision and holding true to that moral compass and that strategic vision, I think it's really important.
Yeah, well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Paulo.
Great to finally do this.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.